Ayin Beis, volume 1, up to chapter 89, page Ayin Alef, 171. So, we're in the middle of a relatively lengthy explanation of the Shaloh, Tafshin Metziah. The Shaloh and Pasha Bamidbar. As we know, Pasha Bamidbar is called Sefer Pekudim. It's a Sefer of counting. And this is all part of a longer discussion on what is a Sefirah. So generally, in this 40 chapters that we're in the middle of here, we're discussing Sefirah has three meanings. We say Sefirah, what they call an emanation or divine instrument, is the 10 Sefirahs, and the word Sefirah has three meanings. Sefirah is from the word misper, number. It's also from the word sipur, telling a story, narrative, and three from the word even sapir, like a brilliant illuminating stone. So right now we're in the 9 chapters that discuss first what is misper, number. And all this is part of understanding basically the difference between transcendent energy, what we call sevav kalam or makif, and immanent energy, which is mamal kalam, pnimi. To answer the big question that he began, all here in chapter 80, how can we find Sefirahs in Igulim? Igulim and Yesha is another name for sevav and mamal. Sefirah reflects on structure, because by definition, a Sefirah means chokhmah, bina, and so on. How could there be structure and non-structure? And of course, the objective of all this is to understand the interface between the divine and existence. We live in a world that is very clearly a multiplicitous world, which means it's defined by distinction. An apple is not an orange. A mineral, demon, tzemeach, medab, are fundamentally different. Everything in existence is made up by structure. On the other hand, we know Hashem Echad is one God. So how did from that one become so many? And more importantly, how did from the many can you reconnect to the one? So yes, it's easy to say that there are two different worlds, but there's the whole basis of Torah, Chassidus, is to unite the two without compromising one or the other. Or in simpler terms, how can we, with our identities and individuality, connect to something that is beyond any identity and any individuality? So if you say we, as our individuality and the structure of existence is mitzad the helam, that God conceals himself, okay. So as long as he's concealed, we exist. Like it says in Shayechad Amuna, that if we were able to see the divine force that gives life to us, we wouldn't be able to exist. But that would mean that it's all predicated on us then a concealment. The point, of course, is that there should be revelation of the divine here, that we should connect. That's the whole point of the Torah. So how could you connect and remain you and connect to God? Hashem said it very clearly. God said it to Moshe Rabbeinu when he said he wants to see God's face. Hadeini noch v'decha, I want to see your glory. So the Eibishter said, Lo yireini adam v'chay, no person can see me and live. Which essentially means either Ili Yadaita v'yisiv. If you know me, you are me. If your God is God, if it's the world, is the world. So in a way, you can understand what we call the kefrim, or the people who create state shuyas, two departments, two worlds, that Shamayim L'Hashem, heaven is in God's domain, Ha'aretz Nasan L'Bnei Adam. So it's easier to understand that, because that way you don't have this problem. It's compartmentalization, two different worlds. Obviously, that gets into the very complicated and contrary to everything we know about Achdus Hashem, Eined Milvadei, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the pasuk is, first of all, some titles that's the Havamina, like he says, Ayeh Lekechem. That's what some want to say. Some say it's only referring to, at the end, the Chassidus basically will interpret that's referring to that there are things in Shamayim that reflect godliness more. Whereas in Tachtenim and Eretz does not reflect God. But Dira b'Tachtenim he wants Dafke b'Eretz. Because it also says Shemayim leich al kuluch Avke Abayis Azeh. So okay, fine, yeah. There's different explanations. But the bottom line is, I'm talking the philosophical. But the bottom line is in Chassidus, the goal is, and this is really the whole purpose of Kabbalah and all the Sefirahs and all the Shtalshalos, is that there should be a Achdus. that we in this world connect, and I've said many times here, not to connect like a servant, like a slave to a master, but like partners. Because if it's a slave to a master, a servant to a master, then all what's really needed is that we listen to the master's rules. Do this, do that. I'm not even talking about robot. Let's say even if it's free will. I'm not talking about robot. I'm talking about as a servant, which means then you don't need to have a relationship with your master. Master orders you, that's what you do. And the only matter is, are you going to choose to do it or not do it? But we have too many mitzvahs that show that Valachta b'drachav, that we should go in God's ways. What's the lashon there? What's the lashon? V'dimyan, v'damalei, v'machuchan and afatachan. What's the lashon there? Valachta b'drachav, v'dabek b'mideisav. Basically, v'yadaites Hashem alekecha. All this refers to all the mitzvahs in Deis, all the mitzvahs Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, and all this clearly states that there's a relationship. And as a relationship, the question is, how deep is this relationship? Well, Chassidus Chabad goes all the way. The relationship is complete. As such, we need to have a way of retracing the steps from a world of Ribui to a world of beyond number. So here where we are right now, I mean, the discussion is the theme of all of Ayin Beis, what I just said. Starting Kesed is the first interface. It's the desire of God to have a world. But that's just a desire. It has to come down to details. So we have, just like in the human body, the individual faculties, we too have the Sefirah. Like he says in Tanya, the Sefirah, the Keiches HaNefesh, the faculties of the soul, Mishtal Shlomehen, evolved from the Sefirah Salyenis, which is in a sense God's faculties. Not God has faculties. He manifested in that seer of an Adam, which we call Adam Elyon. So when we say in the Torah, Nasa Adam b'tzalmeinu k'dmusenu, God could have said, let's create man. Why do you have to add this pasuk which makes everything far more complicated? He could have just said, let's create man. He says, he created animals, he created the celestial bodies, created vegetation, heaven and earth, light. Only here it says Salmeinu K'dmusenu. So right there you see that he wants something that's similar to himself, which of course brings all the problems. God doesn't have a tzelem and demus. We say the second of the Seres HaDibros, you're not allowed to even make a demus, something in God's shape. And here God himself creating something in his own image. So as we learned all the way in the beginning of Ayin Beis, and this is the sort of all, as I said, Kabbalah and Chassidus, is that God has the power to manifest himself in a tziyud. Not Atzmus is not tziyud, God forbid. Atzmus is beyond any structure or anything. But he has the power to create a structure, and that structure should reflect himself. So there's a structure of existence that doesn't reflect the divine. That's when a human being behaves and follows his own desires. That's when his Tzelem Elokim gets concealed. We spoke yesterday, that's when an animal will attack a human being because it doesn't recognize the divine image in him. When Daniel was in the Neva Rayas, in the lion's den, it was recognizable. It wasn't even a miracle, in a sense. Because Daniel was a divine person and the animals recognized it, so they respected it. But the bottom line is that we have an entity, the only entity that's Tzelem Elokim, which is a contradiction of terms. Elokim has no Tzelem, he's saying Tzelem Elokim. This is essentially, in different words, Sefirah, or Adam Elyon. They have no power of their own, it's divine in every possible way, but it's already divine as it manifests in a structure. And then there's divine beyond the structure, which is what we call Sevav Kalalman, transcendence. So here we're in the middle of the discussion of Mispar as divine in the structure. But in Mispar itself, the discussion here is there's two elements in Mispar. Mispar Eres and Mispar Kelim. So when you say the word number, you're referring to the Kelim, the containers of Atzilus, or you're talking about the energies? And we discussed at length the difference between containers and energies, because obviously they're all energy there. There's no physical containers. But container defines the definition and the parameters of, let's say, Chesed. Chesed is not Gvura. When you talk Eir, you're talking about the energy within it. So, for example, when you read a page on paper, so there's Kelim and Eris in everything we do. The Kelim are the letters. So you read, let's say, a line or two, and you get an idea. The idea is the Eir. But for the Eir to express, you need the letters and the words. So if you look at the letters and the words themselves, you're focusing on the Kelim. If you're looking at the idea that they're conveying, you're focusing on the Eir. And if they work well together, it's very smooth. the idea gets manifest in the right words, and the right words convey that idea. Now, what happens if you have words and you start reading it and you don't understand what it's saying? So clearly then, the kelim and the eres are not aligned. So mispir ha-kelim, he explained, is what we call mispir as in Hagbolah. It's a definition of the number as a structure. Numbers. I'm talking about Natzilis, it's a line. If someone writes something and they're not and it's not conveying the idea properly, that means that the eres and kelim were not written. I'm talking about the writer. The writer could be off. The reader could also be. The reader could not yet appreciate it. What I'm talking about is the writer. That's where the real problem is. When someone has an and he doesn't know how to communicate it. Something like that. And then there's the other way around. There are people who know how to communicate and they have no eres. They have nothing to say. And then there's the individuals like, I don't want to say names, they say they can explain something to someone else that they themselves don't understand. But the bottom line, I'm just giving you an example. So, mispir ha'eres, mispir ha'kelim, what he called lo yisafir, and what he spoke about, how you mispir b'nei Yisrael asher lo yisafir. How could you say that? Because that's mispir ha'eres. Because in eir, what you're focusing on is not the number per se, the structure, you're focusing on the echos, on the quality. For example, I give the example, children. Someone has blessed with 10 children, let's say. So it's a number 10. But if you ask them, what is this, like number 10, you're going to compare it to, let's say, 10 pieces of 10 potatoes? No. The 10 is just a number. What he sees in this 10 is the value, the quality of it. So it's all about where you focus on. But you need both, because this world, if you just had mispir ha'eres, we wouldn't have real structure. You'd only have echos, no kamos. If you only had mispir ha'kelim, you'd only have kamos and no echos. It's ultimately quantity and quality have to meet. But we live in a world where quantity dominates. They call it size matters. With things that are seemingly, someone has more of something, seems like it's more. But you can have more of something and be actually poorer. Because if you don't have the quality, what does more mean? But in this world, there's a distortion. Just like somebody can speak for 2 hours and say nothing. So they said a lot. Just turn on any television, read the debates and so on. You can talk radio, and say nothing. And another person in 2 words, in 5 words, b'derech ktsora, mu'at hamachzik hamaruba, can have in that more than you'll hear from someone else. So it's all a matter of what you value. So if you appreciate quality, it's not about how much. The much is the quality of it. I can give many examples. I'm just giving some of them. So where we are right now is he began with explaining that these 2 things, mispir ha'eres, mispir ha'kelim, this is what says in Razal, Gemara Beya, and Halacha, es shadar limnos and kol shadar limnos. Es shadar limnos refers to things that are only measured through counting them. That's because of their value. And kol shadar limnos are things that are counted. Sometimes they're counted individual, and sometimes they're not. Which of course shows that they're not as qualitatively valuable. He's going to say this is ultimately mispir ha'eres and mispir ha'kelim. To explain this, he went into Shaloh, beginning of chapter 87, top of 167. Shaloh says, what is the inyan of counting Eden? This minyan b'nei Yisrael, mispir b'nei Yisrael. He says because it's hashra, it's hashchina. The counting from Medrash he brings. By counting, you bring down the Shechina. And to explain that, he starts saying why. Because counting shows on cheshivus, on value. And he discussed in chapter 87, Tzva Hashamayim, the pasuk Hameitzi b'mispir tzvam. What's the mispir? Because every tzva l'mayla, especially l'mayla, you see begoli, the ayin b'riyah chushis, physically you can see the kreich ha'ein seif, the value in each individual element. So even though there's Ashgach in all of the universe, and every detail in existence is also, of course, divinely ordained, and there's divine providence. But there's places where you see it more revealed, and sometimes where it's more concealed. He spoke really 3 levels. Elikim, where it's completely concealed, like in Golus, or in Parnasi, even though it's Berech Hashem Elikecha, and B'chol Taaseh is only to make a keli, to bring it into physical, materialize it, yet it's concealed. You need to meditate, contemplate on it. Then there's Shem Havaya, where that's kelim. That would be like mispir ha'kelim. It's concealed in the containers, the hashgacha. Then there's mispir ha'eres, There's Havaya, but it's with a levush dak. It's there, but it's not completely, but it's pretty, meaning a very subtle garment or container. That would be like Pnimis HaKelim. Doesn't say that specifically, but that's what it's apparent. And then it's Mamish Begali, V'yeda, where it says V'yeda Lekim. The Geulas Mitzrayim came, as he says, V'yishma Lekim, V'yeda Lekim. Rashi says, Nosan Aleim Lev, Eloi Hilim Einov. That's Mamish Havaya Begili, and was a nest, and it took them out of Mitzrayim. But it says V'yeda Lekim, because it also went through Elikim. So that's what's discussion on Tzvah Maila, on the celestial bodies. And the last chapter, 88, he said the same thing is with souls. He's coming back to counting Eden. Souls are compared to Tzvah Shamayim. Souls are compared to the heavenly bodies. That here too there's the counting of because of the value. But then he goes and says we're far more valuable. Souls are far greater in quality than Tzvah Shamayim, because ultimately the celestial bodies, the sun and the planets and the stars, are still physical creatures that God invested in them divine power. But they don't have it on their own, because they don't have it akiyum atzmi. It's only because something imposed, like we throw a stone. The stone doesn't become flying stone. The stone, we impose power. So God imposed, so to speak, and put power that they should last. Chazakim came ibadim, they should be as strong today as they were when they were created. And neshama, on the other hand, and he explains two interpretations. Whether neshama comes from Eris or neshama comes from Kelim, both of them are kiyumatli, because the neshama itself is a divine entity. And therefore neshamas have this value, and that's why you count. The last lines was, that's the chshivus. The Shaloh says, Mispir is ashros ashchina, that through counting you have the shchina rest, because Mispir shows on value. And in the Neshamas you see this value because they are each individually forever. Now here too he says there are three levels. There's Hashgacha, two. And for Neshamas there's Hashgacha from Shem Havaya. And here there are two ways. It can be Nisim Gluyim Mamish, like he says, on Hugga with them. The way God conducts himself with souls is that in a way that's higher than nature, or it can be concealed in Elikim, which is Nisim Elubashim B'Teva. Miracles that are hidden in Teva, like Purim, but it's also above nature, and because of this, that's why each one is counted. Now he continues in chapter 89, continues the Shaloh, because the Shaloh, remember, connects it to Es Darki Limnes and Kol Darki Limnes with Kol Darki Limnes. So now comes the Shaloh. The Shaloh asks a question. Hiksha Shaloh, page 171. Page test. Hiksha Shaloh, the Shaloh asks like this. After explaining that counting brings Hashras Ashchina, L'cheira is the opposite. Seemingly it's the exact opposite. Ein habracha Metziah b'davar hamodud v'hamonei. Blessing will not be found in a thing that is measured and counted. Like it says in Azal Be'ed Gimel Bab Metziah, what does it say? That bracha rests in a davar hasamay min ha'ayin, in a thing that's concealed from the eye. This is why we give a blessing to be compared to the fish, because fish are covered by the water. You don't see them. Yosef, the blessing of the fish, which contradicts everything we said we said till now. Till now we're talking about numbers, chshivus, and suddenly we see counting something is not appropriate. That's why we say Asher Yeshua V'Sechi, you don't count people, etc., etc. Okay. Well, we'll understand this soon. As we said, there's two types. There's the numbers that the IRS has dependents, and there's a number of people you love. And we heard from Rabbi Berkowitz, unfortunately, the other number. The numbers that they did in the concentration camps. Remember the other day? That was pretty wild. Okay. The Tirutz, and he answers the Shaloh, that is. This is Lashon of Shaloh. You should know. There are two types of numbers of counting. The number of things in Elam Hazah, when you count something, which is chumri. You count potatoes, you count dollars. The chumri, what does chumri mean? It's crass and coarse. So it's very tangible matter. But it's not just gashmi, it's chumri, grob. V'zeh misper einatev, and this number is not considered good. Ki marche shemisper kol prote shenisper kol prote levade. I guess it means because you're counting everything as separate individual things. Ozu period. It demonstrates separation. In other words, when you're counting, the mere thing that you're counting, you're showing that things are different. It's not opposite of achdus. It's like saying, I'm counting. Counting means one thing is distinguished from the other. I mean, he's defining, remember, Shaloh, just for the record, they say the Alter Rebbe was a Shaloid. So it says the Rabbeim say. Because when it says Mepi Sofrim, Mepi Sefrim, in the beginning of Tanya, the introduction to Tanya, it says Maral and the Shaloh. When you learn Shaloh, which actually is relatively easy to learn, is you can see Seidus of Chassidus there. Because he brings together Drush and Kabbalah, and all very practical. Everything is a Heirah. It's unbelievable, the Shaloh. If you ever read any original Shaloh. So you see here, you can even see the language is a language that's Chassidus, Pirud, Chumri. Huh? What? Yeah. So bottom line, we'll continue to read the Shaloh. V'gam meira sheyesh li ketz v'tachlis. So one thing is, so we're talking about one type of number, we're talking about a number in Elam Hazeh, it's Chumri, and this misper is not a positive. Shenisper kol prat levade. That's what it means. It means like kol prat levad. I have to look inside, but I'm almost sure that's what it means. V'gam, another thing, meira sheyesh li ketz v'tachlis. And also, what does number mean in this world? That means that there's it has an end, and a tachlis, and a purpose, meaning a limitation, basically. It's referring to limitation, not to ilui. It's not referring to quality and virtue. It's referring to the second type of number. However, misper shel hasagas elam haba. It's an interesting expression, meaning from the perspective of elam haba, from a spiritual perspective. Zeh misper bilti misper. This type of number is not a defined and distinguishable number as it is. And it has no end. And the kates an edge, an end, and a tachlis, meaning like tachlis. He doesn't mean tachlis as purpose. He means tachlis as tichla, as a limitation, basically. Yeah, finite. So here you see the word, by the way, misper bilti misper. What does he mean? He means bilti misper, bilti that aspect of number. Of course, it's a number because the whole thing is he's saying it's two types of numbers. But it's not focusing on the tangible element of counting this and so on. It's focusing on the quality. So this is the Shaloh, an earlier Shaloh. If you remember, he called the Daf Shin Mem Zayin. By the way, the Shalohs we usually have today are not these Dafim. These are called Tfus Amsterdam. The Dafim that Shaloh is cited in Chassidus is a print from Amsterdam print. It's a very, you don't have it today. They didn't reprint it. It's a rare. I know, I have it. It's a big one with all the Marmakemis. Right. But it's not the Tvus Amsterdam. It's not even Seichen there. Tvus Amsterdam was the classic Shaloh that all the, basically the Alter Rebbe and that whole generation used. So when they Seichen Dafim, you can't even find it unless you have a comparison. I started marking my Shaloh, which the pages are. But Tvus Amsterdam, maybe you can find it online, Hebrew books. Because some that made the new editions weren't always aware of how important those numbers were. Shas, they thank God maintained certain pages. Zohar also more or less. But the Shaloh, it's not everybody knows. And it's usually taken by numbers, you see by pages. Sometimes the Shaloh you could take by pash, like it's really Shaloh, Tereship Iksav, Parship Bamidbar. Then you could find it easily. I mean, I have it. I was just reading it before, but it's different page numbers. Just pointing out, just if you want to look it up, it's in Parsha Bamidbar. It's in the second volume in the old print. Now I know they made a new print. Huh? Yeah. So Ubedaf Shimam Cheskos. Okay, so that's one thing the Shaloh says. So he answered the question without the need explanation, obviously, but he answered the question that it is a. The question he answered was computer is going to be in his way. Dashiv Ben Ches, he continues and says like this. Kosov, Shazel Maimer Azal, Eshe Darke Limnos Sheninu, Oy Kol She Darke Limnos Sheninu. He now compares the two types of counting that exist. Eshe Darke Limnos and Kol She Darke Limnos. The B'chinas Eshe Darke Limnos, which means every specific thing is exclusive and is specifically counted. That's the number of Elam Haba. Hanimshach mebchinas S. Now it's the diuk of S. Remember we asked S and Kol. I don't know how it is up in Nigla. Why it's S and Kol. I mean, Rashi says there, I looked it up, S means this. S should have come this and this and this and this. And Kol is more, because you could read it the other way, right? Because Kol should have come is things that dafke, Kol, everything that you count. But it means that everything that you could count, sometimes you count and sometimes you don't. Okay. So S, Haino Esis Atera. Because S is alef tof. Ma'alef atof. So S Darke Limnos is referring to the Misper of Elam Haba, which is the quality, the virtue of Misper. And that's the Lashon S, from S meaning the S Esis Atera. So it's not just Esis Atera, also have 304,805 letters in the Torah. But we know those numbers are not just are Elam Haba numbers, meaning they're spiritual. Ma'alef atof. V'kol shedarke limnos hu in ha-misper de-elam haza. And Kol is referring to the misper de-elam haza, which he considers here to be a misper leitev, einatev, because it's dealing with chumri. Why does he say it's Kol? I think he says there Kol 15. Okay, whatever the reason is. He does connect it to Yud and K, that it says Yud nivre elam haba and Behei nivre elam haza. Maybe. Okay. Now the Rebbe Rashab, I believe, begins to. I don't know. This is still the Rebbe. This is still connected because it says Shaloh brings there also the Maimar Chazal. Remember, this question is asked in Gemara. Okay, it could be. It could be. The Gemara asks the question that sometimes it says Yesh Misper L'Gdudov, that there's a number to his legions, and sometimes it says Ein Misper L'Gdudov. So the Gemara answers two answers. One is Eisen Shuritzeni Shalmokim, or She'en L'Eisen Shon, or Kam Bezmasha Besamir Shayikayim, Kam Bezmasha Besamir Shayikayim, and the other says that every Gedud has unlimited, but the Gedud in total have a limit. So, and of course is going to be connected to what we're discussing here, because it depends what number you're talking about, especially the second interpretation, because what's going on, it's not play of it's play of words. It means there's two aspects to it. So he says like this now: V'sheidish ha'hefresh b'misper de'elam haba, b'misper de'elam haba, while pimayim razal, shetirish kushya. This Maimar Razal I just said. The root of the difference between misper of elam haza, of chumri, meaning number as it is finite, limited, the negative element of it, and misper of elam haza is the virtue and quality of number, is according to the Maimar Razal that answers the question, the v'hoyim misper al v'lei yisoper. Remember we said the lashon was v'hoyim misper b'nei yisrael al shaloi yisoper. So which one is it? It's connected to the misper and gedudim. I think they connect these two. But anyway, this is this question. So the answer is Kam bezman she'esin l'tzein shalmokim, v'kam bezman she'ein esin l'tzein shalmokim. So when esin l'tzein shalmokim, meaning you have begilui, it's lo yisaper. And when it's ein esin l'tzein shalmokim, meaning when you're involved in elam haza and chumri, then it's yisaper. You have a number. You're countable, which means you're limited, basically. Va'inyan hu, here's a good explanation, by the way, Rabbi. So what you said about numbers, that they didn't know what they put number, because there's also a negative number. And by them the number was a number for death and for ending life. But Beprimius, it could, yeah. By Inyan who the now he's going to. This is now the Rebbe Rashab starting to explain. The truth is, this piece is from the Tzemach Tzedek, the Teichen Advarim. By Inyan who the Inyan of this is the Misper Elam Haza. The Misper Elam Haza. What means Misper Elam Haza? Remember, we're talking number defines the structure of existence. Numbers. Everybody needs an accountant, right? So what's misprel? Hudavar hamadud umani. That's something that's measurable and countable. V'yeshle kitzva, and it has an end. It has an edge. It has a conclusion. It has an end. Even though it's also a number, it has no end. By the way, all this is still the Shaloh, the taken of the Shaloh. Like we say by Amar Azal, Talmud Chacham, Ein Lehem Menucha Le Be'elam Hazav Le Be'elam Haba, Shenemar Yelchem Mechal Al Choyel, Shu B'chinas Aliyas HaMadrigas Aden Shir. So what do you have? You see clearly, you're not saying they're in the world of infinity, you're saying they're going through levels. Elam Haza, Elam Haba, Mechayel, Al Choyel, but it's Aden Ketz, Ein Lo Menucha, Aden Shir. So they're continuously elevating, ascending without any limit. U'Kamesha Kosav HaShalosham, he's weaving it together. This is part of the Shaloh. Some of it is Loshna Shaloh, some not. Like the Shaloh writes this, Shetomid misnaba v'helech hasagosam bo yizbarach. That consistently, v'tomid, always, forever, perpetually, eternally. Misnaba v'helech hasagosam, their comprehension of God, bo yizbarach, their comprehension in God, in the Eibishter, is constantly growing and elevating. That's the point. That's misprelim haba. Yeah. And lemanucha lebe'elam hazeh le'mabal. V'hu yizborach ein tachlis lasagosei. And of course, if their sins are comprehending God, then God has ein tachlis, like it says, meruba midayam. Not meruba. Chova. Yeah. Ein le'tachlis nimtzeh tamid hamisper sefer v'helach. Meaning that so they're constantly the number is growing and being constantly counting and growing. In other words, there's an endless journey in the world of numbers itself. Because we're not talking infinite, where a person, let's say, is just going into a place where there's no structure. There is a structure. You're elevating level by level by level, and it's going to and beyond. Look at that. Alter Rebbe didn't even want Olam Haba. It's Ein Sof Madregas, that's the expression. Yeah. That's what loss of love will be. The Alter Rebbe writes in Simon Chavot, she says, what will be then, once you're ready to finish, but it's Adas and it's Achaim. So Teir Nigla, after you have the bitter, you won't need bitter Tevirah, so what are you going to learn for? He says, Lasas Yichudim El Yenim, which is forever and ever. It's appreciating. I once spoke for doctors. So I spoke about Mashiach. The Mashiach comes, the woman will be illness and death. So one doctor gets up, calls, raises, and what are we going to do? So I said, that's maybe why you charge so much, so we could save for a long retirement. After the joke. But so I said, the answer is, because I once heard the Rebbe say something similar about scientists. I said, you know what you're going to do? Being Mipsari Echzel Lekah, and the human being was created in the divine image, you'll be teaching us the endless secrets of God through the human body. Instead of fixing healing, you'll teach us the gods, and they actually were very happy with that. I said, you have intimate knowledge, because that's what your expertise is. So you can be involved in fixing sickness, healing sickness, or you can be involved in appreciating the mysteries, like a scientist, like a Marabba Masach, a Magadla Masach. Listen, the Rambam said, Lo yiyesa ka'elim el ladasas Hashem bo. Okay. So Chel Chalchaim L'Choyel, so Sefer Helach. Umokol Mokim HaSogas Em B'chinas Chalkas Seichel. You're not saying this is a munah. When you say, for example, Les Machshava Tvisa Beklal, Elatof is Berusa Deliba, that his mind can't grasp it, and the Rusa Deliba grasps it, or a munah of course is going in the world of Bligvul, because a munah, you're believing something beyond you. Here we're saying it's Hasaga. We're saying Talmidei Chachamim Ein Lehem Menucha, meaning in their Hasaga, in their comprehension. And Hasaga is absolutely his Chalkus. It's, you learn things. You learn today something, you learn tomorrow more. The whole idea of comprehension is it comes in details. The only difference is when it comes to Hasaga, Gashmis, physical sciences or physical knowledge, meaning knowledge of material things, there the Hasaga also has a limit. not only is the comprehension limited, but also how much you can go. When it comes to divine wisdom, Hashaga Lekis, to understand godliness, the Evaelim Haba, there's no end and no limit, no sheer to the amount, to the abundance of comprehension a person could have. The Achshav Gam B'Hashaga Lekis Yesh Al Kaponim Ketzav Gvul. Because Achshav, meaning today, in this world, even in understanding godliness, there's Al Kaponim some type of limit and parameter. The Ad Poisave, expression Ad Poisave is used. Till here you come, not further. But this is not because the inyan, the concept is limited. It's only because the depth of the idea and the limitation of the person that is understanding the idea. Like when we say imreku mikemhu, it's not because of the aval ba'asaga lakisha tila asid. So in other words, even today it's unasaf, without a limit, but we're limited. Will come the future, the comprehension of the divine. Then we will not have any limit, so we will be able to travel on this endless journey into the infinite divine understanding, divine wisdom. It goes back now, if you remember all these this language he was using at the end of chapter Pevov. And to his understanding, Ayin Misper, there's no number. The Mekol Mokim Hazeh B'chinas Misper. He's still using the word Misper. He's not saying Tfunase Bli Gvul, he's saying Tfunase Ayin Misper. Means it's in the world of Misper, but it has no Misper. It's in the world of numbers, but it doesn't have a number. Because it's Tfuna Vasaga, it's Tfuna is from like Bina, Primis Habina. The inner understanding of Bina, of comprehension, Vasaga. Raksha Protim Hem Bli Misper. So because it's Tfuna and Asaga, not a Muna or something like that, it has Misper, it's a structure. There's comprehension here. But the details, if you say how much, it's forever. Which in a way is like, not a contradiction of terms, but it's like saying that you're comprehending, let's say, an example sometimes used chesed, ain't safely pashtuse. It's chesed, not gvura. But it can go on forever. The Eibishter chesed can be without any limit, but it's chesed. Then there's
roll of nickels, not a roll of diamonds.
Right, but an infinite roll of nickels. Look, it's basically where number meets beyond number. Because remember, the Eibishter is not limited also that it be nickels. It could be nickels and dimes by him. By us it is because we have a structure. At the end of the day, it's us understanding godliness. It's not just going beyond it all. He wants it to be within a structure. He wants the B'li Misper to be inside of Misper. He wants quality within quantity. Okay. Now parentheses, a short parenthesis. Ukanoida the chol seichel, as it's known that every seichel kishmagi al mk yeser, every intelligent idea, every concept. When you reach the depth, you reach further into the depth of the concept. The concept comes into more details. Now, this is what he means by details. He doesn't mean like dibur legabe machshava. We're not talking about details as in limitation, less air and more aesius. He means more details that you understand more details of the concept. V'gam, that's what he says. Gam apratim hem bilti mugbalim u'mcholokim kol kach. And another thing happens, the opposite, that the details are not that distinguishable, not that defined and distinguishable, because they're all part of the depth of an idea. Huh? But then you see, aesius is just kalim. The more pratim here, he means ideas, details of the ideas, not aesius. I could differentiate very much. You could have one idea and speak about it for 3 hours. That's dibur. You could have one idea that has in it hundreds of details in it. Not because you're speaking the same idea more. You understand more pratim. But you understand the difference what I just said? You can take one idea, one line, and speak about it at length just because you're talking to a child or you're talking to a beginner student. Then you can have an idea that that has the 3 hours would not be the same idea. You're speaking 3 hours of a lot more details of understanding the idea. It's depth of the idea. Depth brings with it more details. It's a different type of detail he's talking. He's not talking the detail of Mispedei Lamaza. He's talking about the Yelchem Achayil Al Choyel. What happens when they go further? It's like Dibur. Dibur, if you remember, Dibur is diminishing the idea. Let's say when you say to a child, I'm going to explain to you Bereshis bara Elokim Shemayim v'Sa'aretz. You explain in a very physical, simple way, and you take a lot of aces. You're limiting the idea. Someone who understands Bereshis bara Elokim Shemayim v'Sa'aretz, Al Pi Kabbalah and Al Pi Chassidus, has a lot of details, but it's not the same. This way you're going down, this is going up. And that's where basically the Ein Sof of Yelchem Achayil Choyel is going up, not going down. It's not breaking down. It's not saying breaking an idea down into details. It's an appreciation of more depth and more details in the idea. It's a big difference. What? You don't see the difference? It's like two opposite extremes. One second. No. No, and Dibur doesn't do that. Dibur doesn't do that. It's the opposite. No, Dibur doesn't. Dibur, when you speak to someone that's on a lower level, you don't do that. You don't show him more colors. You show him less colors. You take one color and you're explaining it to him in detail.
You have to be able to do that.
You want to give it. When you teach a child Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, you'd also say that. You're teaching him a lot of colors, or you're teaching him just letters. Letters have nothing in them. That's the opposite of what he's saying here. The opposite is not the letters. The opposite is details of a concept.
It's like the first Dibur.
Why so? This is like basic, very obvious.
And after that,
But the one is going down, one is going up. But I don't know what you mean by first. We're not talking. There are no two diburim here. I gave an example that dibur breaks it down, going downward. It's like taking, let's say, a piece of bread, one piece of bread that is let's give it a kazayas. You break it in 1,000 pieces, people to eat.
Right.
The other one is no. You're taking the bread and it's becoming far larger. It's no longer a kazayas. You're going deeper and deeper into. It's actually growing. That's the difference. One is taking an idea and breaking into details. That's what he's saying here. The whole point is this, because he has to say this. If not, Yelchem Achayil Choyel is not like bringing it down levels, it's going up levels. It's deeper understanding of something. It's numbers. Basically, he wants to point out that it's a number, but it's a number going in the other direction. That's another story. Yeah, that doesn't contradict this. That's because when you go down, you have to go deeper. But the bottom line for the Makabel, it doesn't do it for the Makabel, it does it for the Mashpia. The Makabel is just getting a limited flow here. Right. Yeah. That's the difference. You see, when in this case they're not mugbal muchalakim. When it comes to dibur, they're absolutely mugbal muchalakim, distinguishable. And that's why in the depth of the comprehension that will be in the future, there won't be any number or parameter or definition at all. More specifically, because the future, the comprehension will be muhus alakus. He's adding here, not just mitzias, not just the knowing of God. Muhus means echus. We'll appreciate the quality of the divine on a deeper level. In other words, not just a reflection of it, not just that you know it's there, but actually as if you're experiencing it yourself. Yeah. U'kumesh yizboyer b'perek reish chav zayin 227. And therefore, every comprehension there will be literally a form of Ein Sof.
So don't cloud
Not necessarily. I think it's the same thing. We're not saying Ein Misper. The parentheses, he just elaborated a bit of what the understanding of this is. That there's more details. But the details are not distinct, because it's about understanding the Echus Hadova, the Echus HaSogeh. I'll give you an example, okay? If you explain to somebody what mamalak, even what we're talking about now, you explain to something what mispur is, someone what mispur is, what is mamalak kalam. So you define structure. You can go on for years, give a class in mamalak kalam. There's a lot to say about it. Here we have 53 chapters. Ha'eris and Kalim and Keiches and Keiches HaNefesh and Nevorim and say Slapshus and all the details, Aher, Ayin, how it's tailored for each other. You explain it. You're taking one inyan and you're breaking into a lot of details. That's mispur. I wouldn't say ilm hazeh because ilm hazeh is chumri. This is also alakus. But lefiyarech, yeah. Then someone says, after we finish now mamalak kalam, and let's start talking about save of kalam. You're going into a whole new concept now. And you're going to this concept and you start talking about it, and the more you understand it, the more pratim you're going to get. You're not getting pratim, you're breaking down the same idea into more details. As you understand it, the teacher is going to give you more pratim, like we're learning right now. So you're growing upwards, you're going up. And so in each level, obviously, you get more and more, and it's an endless journey. But you're going through hasagas, through comprehension. Bottom line is, only the mind has this capacity to do with this paradox. Because if you talk, for example, emotionally, you don't say Talmid Chacham ein lehem ave l'chayil l'chayil. Even though that's a discussion. Why? Because let's talk emotions is a whole different story. Emotions, by definition, are limited. You can't have what means bleak full emotions. What does it mean? You love God. Yeah, you can grow in your love, and probably you can grow endlessly. But hasaga that comes out far much richer and deeper, because hasaga means you are comprehending, and comprehension by definition is an endless journey. The truth is, the question you can ask the other way around: which real wisdom, even chokhmas ha'elam, is not endless? Is there an end to mathematics or science? There's an end, maybe how we humans understand it, but it's also understanding God's world. So hypothetically, someone will say, how many subatomic particles are there? You could also say, but because the world at the end of the day is limited, the world has an end, there is going to be a point where the seichel comes to an end. Whereas when you're talking about alekuz, there is no end. So that's really the point. But by nature, intelligence is both a mispur thing and an endless journey. Right.
Even though it's ain't soft, but it's finite.
Yeah, the Gemara in Tainus. It's in Hades. The Gemara is in Hades. Yeah, he says that he knew how to calculate. Chassidus brings this question, B'yachas to, because by name himself, etc. Yeah. Okay. V'zehu gam ken inyan ein mispur ma she'ein b'chinas hagbola kol kach. Okay, so this is talking what he said till now, mispur, as in the context of going further. Now he's going to talk about another thing in mispur, as in parameters. Let me explain. See, when you say, you can speak mispur, called eirich, and you can speak in reichev. So really what he's speaking now is eirich, the length of something, an idea, and you can climb the ladder, the journey is forever. But there's another aspect to mispur, which defines parameters by saying something has parameters. It's a foot long, an amma long, an amma wide, and so on. If you remember, the language of the Shaloh was, he said like this: he used two expressions in the mispur itself. 1 second. What was the other expression? Okay, let's read on. We'll be clear. So, in addition to the fact that you can go on and on, it's also not that defined. It's not that limited. So the Shaloh said, Mispur elam hazeh, he said, there's both things. It's limited. It's what did he say? The words were kol proti levade azu pirid v'gam meirish yesh lekeitz v'tachlis. Those two things. One, it means separate. Another, that it means that there's a keitz v'tachlis. It has a limited parameter. So here too, the Ein Sof, as they climb, will be without Hagbala. Razal say by Talmud Chachamim that every one of them gets burned by the canopy of his chaver. What does this mean? That in Gan Eden, Ne'el Haba, Each Talmud Chacham has his so-called apartment, has his heichel. I say heichel, chamber. And it's necessary there should be separate chambers, because the energy that they emit through learning is like a fire. And if they get too close, one gets burned by the other. So he's explaining this now. Shehe madreges rabes aden shir klal. The Gemara talks about ein. There's a madreges rabes in that same Gemara. No. But what's the point of nichve b'chupase? My understand, huh?
Everybody's in special.
No, 1 second. This is the kol v'achad who dover shebeminyan she'en lebitl klal. I think he's saying the opposite. He's saying that you want each one to be preserved and not be nichve b'chupashu shel, right? That means you want each individual. Because you could say, what's wrong with nichve b'chupashu shel? Let them all join as one and get burned up into one big fire. I think that's what he wants to say. What do you think? I'm just reading it. It says like this. And then he says, that's the kol echad v'echad from Razal. Who dover shebeminyan. Every one of them is counted as one. That means she'en le bitl klal. That's why there's no bitl. It's eshedak limnos, right? There's no bitl. Because he's valuable. And that's why he should not be. That's why he has to have a chuppah that separates him, that it shouldn't be nichva b'chuppah shel chaved. I mean, that's l'cheda what he's saying here. You agree? Because it's a little so. But the Chazal doesn't say kol echad nichva b'chuppah shel chaved. It says ein nichva. That if there was no chuppah, there would be nichva b'chuppah shel chaved, right? If there was no, where's the Gemara? No, I'm asking. What does it say in Gemara? It says in Gemara that if they were too close, they would be nichva. But Bapel, are they nichva or they're not? Are they? Why? Because
Sounds like Viren to me. It's almost like Viren.
But if kolach was, but then it says dover shabitl. No, even though they're nichva, they're not bottle. Is that what we're saying?
No, that's why each one gets burned from the other one, because if the other one would be bottle, then it wouldn't get burned, it wouldn't be there. The fact is that madrega for one side compared to the other side is a very tangible madrega. Therefore, that the second side gets burned from the madrega of the first side, because they thought not to be error.
That's what you're saying. But once they get burned, what happens to them then? Once they get burned, what happens to them?
The fact that there is no mitzvah, that's why the mitzvah. Actually, then everyone would have to do it.
No, I think the opposite. Who dover shebeminyan she'en le bitl li is a dover chashuv enough.
If there wouldn't be a mitzvah, then they would be all one at once.
Why they can be a mitzvah?
Upward b'kliyachad. It would be upward b'kliyachad.
Well, no, it's like that. In other words, what? What do you mean? So one second. So I want to add one thing to what you're saying. I think what he's saying from this Chazal, you see both extremes. On one hand, you see that everyone has chuppah. Clearly, why? Because every one of them exists. Because they're davar shebeminyan. You say there's kol echad v'echad. You're not saying they all joined as one. Clearly, there's distinction here, and yet at the same time, there's an element of bli mispar, which is that the nichva b'chuppah shel chaved. That's the point here. So on the other hand, there is as kol echad v'echad. They each one have a chuppah, which is shem madreges rabes aden shir klal. So they have levels without any limit. The kol echad, that every one of them is a unique entity because he's valuable and precious, right? Right. Yeah. Oh, the nichva is really reflection of the bligvul, of the bli misper. The chuppah is like the reflection of the misper, of the structure. I mean, what's the nichva here? What's it? The Gemara is that nichva is a positive thing or a negative thing? Negative? So it is a positive thing.
The one that is talking about the praise of God.
If that's only what from moment, you can't say anything about the weekend here.
No, well, it says Tamecham be'elam haza and be'elam haba they don't have menucha, but it's talking primarily l'asur when all this will be revealed. Well, by Tamecham you say it's all the time. Yeah. Okay, fine. Now he goes back to the Gemara. Remember, he spoke about the Gemara. What was it before? About whether you say misper or lo yisaf. So he goes, and that is when the time when they don't fulfill the rotzen, God's rotzen desire. That's when the misper of Bnei Yisrael, the misper of Israel, is the level of number of Elam Hazeh, which is Kates v'gvul, limited, defined. And when they do the Tzeinis Shel Mokim, they do fulfill God's desire. Then it's like the misper, the number of Elam Haba, rather. Spiritual misper. The Ime Yeshu B'chinas misper, that even though there too it's a number, nevertheless it goes forever. There's an infinite element, there's no end to the numbers. With the nichva? With the nichva?
What?
With the nichva? Yeah, what?
In the Tzur, will be a 500 tzaddikim. The 1,000 and the 1,000 madrigas. 1,000 madrigas. Then the 500 tzaddikim, each one fits their own madrigas, and it's there. But what happens vice versa? The 1,000 madrigas.
1,000 tzaddikim.
1,000 tzaddikim, 500 tzaddikim. Then it comes out. The first 500, each one is a madriga for itself. But after that, there'll be another tzaddik who will be in a similar madriga as the previous one. Then there wouldn't be any nichva. Because they'll be in the same madriga. They'll never get worse than the other one because they'll be in the same level. Shaloh on one side, there's a mitzvah, meaning that each one is individual for itself. On the second side, there's a mitzvah because there's so many levels of madrigas that each tzaddik does never touch the madrigas in a second. There's no limit to the madrigas. Therefore, each tzaddik is always for himself. It never could come that two tzaddikim should be in the same madriga.
But they still nichva.
That's what they're nichva, because each one is very limited. So very limited. I can't come close to it. Mr. Renee.
Yeah, but why is nichva? Fire thing is put on fire. Yes, it's nice. Usually you say something that is saying, this fire is casting, she said, they're in the same room, they put each other. It's a half a bad. It's Parmir those fire. Parmir those...
I want to look it up, this source as well, because I'm sure this is taken from someone. This is not just Rebbe Rashab's original. Okay, yeah, fine, I hear. I'm not clear why you needed this 500 and 1,000. Why not just say simple? That Nichum Choshe Chaberi says on one hand, each one has a chuppah, or else you wouldn't. And it's constantly, nichva is a constant process. It means that that's not once you've had Ogibren, it doesn't happen again. So clearly it means there's distinction. Everyone has their chuppah, their place. But the question is, why is it important to focus on this Ayin Mispet here? Let's say there wasn't Ayin Mispet. Let's say there was a Mispet. There's 1,000, let's say 1,000 tzaddikim, 1,000 chuppahs. They each in their individual place, and they get burnt. They get nichva. What's felt?
What would happen will be 1,000 to 3 tzaddikim. So the 3 tzaddikim are going to be in the same madriga as one of the other 1,000.
Right.
It won't be nichva.
So you're saying because there's so many bli gvul tzaddikim, so you need bli gvul levels. I hear. But that's like almost incidental. But is there Maimar Chazal is you're saying because you have, but you don't need this Maimar Chazal for that. That's like saying B'chlal in Gan Eden, you need to have a level for every person because there's different individuals. I hear what you're saying. I'm wondering why this Chazal. What does this Chazal bring out more? If you didn't have the Chazal, what's this Chazal teaching us that we didn't know before till now?
Two dimensions can't exist together.
I think what he wants to say is that there's
Such a high level that each study won't be able to come in contact with.
I think the chiddush of this Chazal is the opposite. That there's a misper.
Yeah.
That there's a chuppah, because it would be very easy to say all the tzaddikim are in one big pot and whatever. And to say that they're distinct entities, that's a dover shebeminyan, and still.
I think he said it.
Exactly, that's why I'm saying that. That's right.
And he says the next word is that.
You could say it needs more havana, because it could also say another thing. If you had a limited amount of tzaddikim, why do they have to be nichva? Let them be so far apart from each other. They don't get nichva. That's like let's say the real estate where you don't live on top of each other. But since it's ein shir, it's stuck in breda. Maybe that's it. Why nichva? What's nichva? Why can't you have 1,000 condos that don't have to be on top of each other?
Well, there's also the line of it. So once there is a case of law, that means each one.
Okay.
It's like 2 dimensions, completely each scholar.
I'm wondering whether Shaloh brings this.
There's a contradiction in the world, and it couldn't exist like that. It's like there's a million dimensions. Completely different.
Wait, when did they get nichva?
Because it becomes a contradiction in itself.
For sure, Eisen is change Shamakim, because there's the bligvul. The Zeu Shabizman, I don't know if it's a direct connection to Nichve. I think it's Bechlal, the two things that he's been talking till now. Right, yeah. Let's go right. Look, we got the picture. The bottom line is we got to understand that Nichve Bislam matters, but that there's two levels here is clear. There's Gvul, there's Misper, and there's Bli Misper. And if Ein Eisen change Shamakim, you only have the focus on the limited. Remember, there's the two types of misper that he's talking about here. Now he's going to explain this in two ways. Maybe from this we'll get some more Havana. And we can explain this in two different ways. You see a uniqueness of Ayin Beis, because Ayin Beis is a good dogma of Ein Ketz. Usually the Maimer 5 pages, 10 pages, there's an end. This is endless. So the Rebbe Rashab lost as a, and he goes as a. So now he's going to explain this in two efanim. Okay, Tehinen is bar lil da b'yem shminat tzeres, because now we learned earlier in Yem Shminat Tzeres, which is the previous Maimer. Okay, what did we learn? The Ikar HaMisra b'chinas HaKelim. The primary place of number is in the level of containers. Ubefrad b'chinas HaMalchus, and specifically in Malchus. I'll just explain. Remember again, he spoke the Pardes, Misper Hayomim. So he said Misper Hayomim. So even though in Atzilus in general is Kelim, but in Atzilus itself, Malchus is the primary place of Kelim. Yeah. Why? Because the containers are numbered and defined. And we learned there too that the Kelim are also Gilead Helam. Remember, it's Kelim of Atzilus. They're only revealing something that was there before. What means Gilead Helam? Compared to the containers of Ak, Adam Kadman, so compared to Adam Kadman, which is also a tzir of Adam Kadman, the primordial man. On this you can say that the containers of Atzilus are Adam Elyon, they're compared, meaning Gilead Helam. Remember, Yesh Ma'ayin always means that the level is infinitely distant from its source, so it doesn't reflect it. It's like, if basically, if something is flowing, even if it gets diminished, but it's still the same. It's in the same category, same quality. So Kalim and Eris of Atzilus are Gilead Helm. That's why it's called Atzilus, not Bria. Ulegabe shorshen be'erin sof shalifnet tzimtzum. Daim b'chin tzeitzah d'shim was. 1 second. And compared to their root in Erin sof lifnat tzimtzum. What about the root of the Kalim and Keich hagvul lifnat tzimtzum? What is that? The words, the letters of the residue, of the impression that was left after the tzimtzum. That's the root of the containers here. Hagamshin is barlel dava yichon. It's in the beginning of the hemshech. Even though we learned earlier in Vayichon Sham, the Yeshleimish is hein be'ein areich legamri. So on one hand, you could say, where's Gilead Helam of the Kalim compared to Ak? But compared to their root lifnei tzimtzum, they're be'ein areich. They are infinitely distant. They're like Yesh Ma'ayin. Nevertheless, Mekol Mokim Harikosa Beitz Chaim Shad Aleph. Shad Aleph, Onof Beis, Bahagah. In Eitz Chaim he writes in the first Shad, Onof. That's how it's Shodim and Anofim. Bahagah, and Hagah, V'seif Onof Gimel. And at the end of Onof Gimel, that the Tzimtzum Nizgala Hisavas Metziah Sakelim. Nizgala. That through the Tzimtzum was revealed and created and come into being, brought into being the existence of containers. Even though the containers after the tzimtzum are be'ein arech, infinitely distant because they became substantial, nevertheless, Kalim of Atzilus you can't compare to the distance, infinite distance of Bri Yitzir Asir Shaharein Elikus Mamish, because they're Mamish divine, and they're in the state of Atzilus. That's why it says Nizgala v'nisava. Not just Nisava. It's revealed. Okay, let me just explain this a bit, because this is, especially if you didn't learn earlier, it's a long arichas earlier, that Atzilus is Gilead Helam. But the Eider Gis, it says, V'chochme ma'ayin timotza. Ma'ayin means Chochma v'Atzilus comes from Yesh Ma'ayin. So the initial tivuch, the initial answer to that was, Eiris of Atzilus are Gilead Helam. And ma'ayin timotza goes on Kalim of Atzilus. But then he does not accept that. He says, first of all, when you say ma'ayin timotza Chochma, it doesn't say klei Chochma. It means the whole of Chochma. So also the Eir of Chochma is ayin timotza. So he answers that by saying that the Eir Atzilus is Gilead Helam from the Eir Hagvul and Eses Sefirah Sagnuzas, the 10 hidden spheres. But it's ein arech and Yesh Ma'ayin the Gabe Eir Habligvul. That's one. As far as the Kalim go, also you can't say Kalim on Mamish Yesh Ma'ayin, because then why is Atzilus different than Bria? So he answers, even the Kalim are also Gilead Helam, and there's two aspects there. There's the Kalim, if you talk about the Kalim, their substance, there's no substance before the Tzimtzum. That's Mamish Yesh Ma'ayin. But if you're talking about the Kalim as a revelation of the divine structure, the God wants structure, then it's a divine Koyach. And in that sense, they're Gilead Helam. Where in Bria, the structure of existence in this world, for example, you can't say it's a Gilead Helam, because it has substance, because it conceals rather than reveals. So even though, remember we learned in the last chapter that Kalim, like Eir, are also Dveikus. It's only Dveikus built in the Keres. Remember I explained, I said there's three things. There's broken Kalim, or there's Kalim that are not aligned with the divine. There's Kalim that are aligned, and then there's Eiris. So what he's saying here is that not just Eiris Gilead Helam, also Kalim are Gilead Helam. He's explaining all this because this is the key to the whole, the foundation here of number. He wants to explain the two elements in number, Mispra Kalim and Mispra Eiris. So just to sum it up again, because a very dakasdika difference. Keli is structure. God wants a structure. Eir is not structure. Eir is God's energy. But both are divine. Both are divine. Well, one is gili, one is not. The kelim are not a gili. Gili a helam, no, but it's not a gili but it's not revealed elokus. Yeah. In other words, let's put it this way. If you didn't have kelim of Atzilus, the Eiris could not go into Biyah because there would be nothing to limit them from flowing. The kelim stop the flow. But within the keli completely is aligned with the Eir, so the keli itself is bligvul. The example Chassidus Gisrid is like when a person writes. So you can write potentially infinite words, but when it comes out of you, out of the hand, it's alef beis gimel. So it says, in other words, that the Hagabala is Ein Seif. It's Ein Seif within itself, but it's Magbil the Hashpah outside of itself. That's what Kelim achieve. Whereas Eid itself does not have that. Eid is Gili. Eid is Gili. It doesn't have anything. There's no breaks with Eid. It would not stop. You need to have the Kelim to so-called stop the flow. The Kelim know that, but not those outside the Kelim.
Right.
Yeah. But if you look from outside the Keli, all you see is a concealment. That's my point.
And what do you see
In the Eir of Bria or the Kelim of Bria? Kelim of Bria, you start seeing it's not even aligned. The Kelim of Atzilus, they're aligned with the purpose. I'll tell you the difference would be. Kelim of Atzilus would be words that are exactly aligned with their ideas. And Kelim of Bria, the writer is not so good anymore. The words are too many words. It is the wrong word distorted. Yeah, a slight distortion because it's merubei teiv miktsasei ra. As you go down, it gets more and more distorted. Now you look in Elam Haza, you only see kelim. Now, if a person knows to see it right, look, when you take a piece of bread, or you see something, you walk in the street and you see something, right? Most of us, the Yetzer Hara gets involved, and it uses whatever it wants for its own purpose. A tzaddik sees Elam Haza, he sees as a keli for elikus. He sees the keich hapel benifel, and his job is to reveal godliness there. We don't see that. We don't even call them kelim. We think the potato peel is it. As I mentioned, the potato peel is just a klippa covering the potato. The potato is the ruchnius. Well, when I said Ur is Gili, I meant Ur reveals the divine in it. Keli, you need both. Let's put it this way: Ur would be the idea without words. So it's still an idea, but nobody can understand. Remember, Shmai v'Avtalion speak, and Shammai hears Chesed, Gvura, and Hill hears Chesed. In Shmai v'Avtalion's word, there's also Gvura and Chesed, but it's Ur. You need the Keli to define it. So the Eid is really look, they all have both levels. The question is where the primary function. Listen, Kelim of Atzilus compared to Bria is Eid. You have to remember. And Eid of Atzilus compared to Ach is like Keli. If you want to really start breaking it down. Remember we spoke. It's hard to figure out even what Asiya Ruchnius is. And to get the Bria Ruchnius, but the point of the matter is, it is all relative. But there is a general distinction between Keli and Eid. I heard in the name of Nachum Goldschmidt, the name of the Rebbe's brother, Label, that when they once spoke about Eidus and Kelim, not Zelig Feldman, Olav Hashalom in Yerushalayim, used to teach Chassidus. So he was a makabel from Nachum Goldschmidt, the Mashpia in Tel Aviv. And Nachum used to fabring with the Label, the Rebbe's brother, who was considered a Greisa Versteher in Chassidus. So the Label said to him once, and we will verstehen the Unterschied zwischen Eid and Kli. Eid is la'atzmei, Kli is l'zulose. That was the expression. So basically, so in other words, Eid is really how the thing is to itself, and Keli is how you're relating it to something outside of yourself, which is a way of defining it. I mean, it's not the only way, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Aligned with.
Or even in Eid Sef Lifnei At Simsum, when it says that all of it. Look. Remember, Kol Yochel, the Eibishter can do whatever he likes. But here's how it is. When Ola B'Ritzeinei, that he wanted, like Chassidus gives the example, the father, from the Maggid, that the father's chekik, Tzuras Haben, he imagines the image of his child within himself. What's the meaning of this? It means, what does he have to imagine the image of his child? Let him think about himself. What does he need? But he wants something outside of himself that he wants to love, which is part of him. So when God envisions that He wants something that on its own will feel, from God's point of view, the Son and the Father are one. The Rebbe speaks like Koshalai Pridaschem, not Pridaseinu. So from that, but there's already an envisioning of an entity that, from its perspective, is going to be a das tacht, and the Eibishter wants that. How he could do that? That's called Yachal. How he's able to do that, but he doesn't. And then, after the Tzimtzum is when it actually manifests, and we are now independent entities, That if you ask God, God said, you're part of me. But we feel that we're independent entities. So when the Shaloh b'Ritzeinei, the Kalim, is that idea. The Eir was only in order to help the Kalim understand that they are connected. So Eir HaGvul is not because God wants it. Remember we learned that Eir HaGvul, the whole Inyan, is L'hoyre La'elamis. Why do you need Eiris? Why can't you just say the Eir is Bli Gvul and the Kalim are Gvul? Because then the Kalim have no way back. They need an Eir. Like the Kei Chariyah, the power, the Ayin can speak to the Kei Chariyah and it lets it's a path back to the Nefesh. Understand what I'm saying? So that's what you have. Distortion, align it to Kalim, the Kalim are aligned to the Eir, and the Eir is aligned to the Eir HaBlikvul all the way to Atzmus. Simple like that. So figure that out and you have Mashiach here. In Aveda. Anyway, we're still in Eif and Aleph, he's explaining. Okay, so what do we have here? That Kalim Mispir Gvul, and that's also Gilia Helam. In other words, the Kalim are not a new entity. And the parentheses, he added things from what he said before, is a little, I think, some Hesofis, but I need to study it a little more. And therefore, from the perspective that in the Mispir there's a Keich HaMispir, Sefirah HaMispir, Ein ba Mispir b'chinas Gvul klal. Keich HaMesaper, I should say. Okay. So now he's adding something which needs a little beer. So Al-Kain, now what we just said now is that Kalim are Mispir or not Mispir? Tell me. If Kalim are Gileah Helam, revealing God's desire for the structure, so are they Mispir or they're no Mispir? So that's what he's saying here. So listen, Mitzad Mash Yesh Ba Mispir is Keich HaMesaper. So now there's two things in the number. There's the number and there's the Keich HaMesaper, the one that's the power of the one that's counting. Well, he's not saying it's the Eir. Here he's calling it the Eir, the Keich HaGvul, the Keich HaShima. No, it's not the Eir. No, it's not the Eir. Trust me, this is not the Eir. He's saying, Mitzad Mashiyesh Ba Mispir is Keich HaMesaper Sefirah HaMispir. Look, it could be coming through the Eir, but he's talking about the Kalim right now. He just started the Kalim are Mispir. So what he's saying like this, we look at number, you just see a number. But what are we saying now? This number is revealing the number, the power of the number of the one who wants to count this number. It's revealing, it's not creating something new. Yeah. So b'meila, ein ba mispur b'chinas gvul kval. So yeah. Ein ba mispur, ein ba ha'mesaper. 1 second. Val came, it's yeah, this is a big kiddush. Because till now, he was not saying this in Kalim, he was saying it in Eiris. If you remember, he spoke about Lo Yisofet, he was speaking in Eiris, not in Kalim. He said, what was Lo Yisofet? He says that Eir, all it is Megala Keich HaGvul of Ein Seif. Now he's saying it in Kalim. So he's going far higher. L'cheira. No, this is not Mispur Eiris. It's clearly Mispur HaKalim. That's what I just said. Oh, maybe you're right. Okay. Let's go back again. You could say it either way. Either way works. But either way works. Either way is the same havana.
The number that we're talking about, the claim is from the Keich HaMesaper.
Yeah. Because Keich HaMesaper, you could say it both ways. L'cheira. But we can sagen nicht verkehrt. The Mesaper hat the Keich HaMispir. Sefirah HaMispir. Ein ba HaMispir b'chinas gvul kval. It's interesting here. Mispir and Mesaper can be. By the way, either way you read it, it's the same havana. The bottom line is, whether you say in the number you have the power of the counter, or you have that the counter has the power to count, bottom line is the number has an element that's not number. That's the bottom line. So it's interesting question of how to read it. You can read it both ways. I also read it first. First I read everything is Mispir, but then I realized it's an interesting line, this line. Was sagt huh? The Santa line. Let's read till the end and probably help us. He's talking clearly Kalim here. There's no question about it. And this is what I said before. The 10 spheres in Atzilus, it says Ein Seiflis Pashtusan. Remember we said Ein La Menucha Le Be'el Mazeh. What means Ein Seiflis Pashtusan? It goes forever. In a Pashtus. It's still spheres. It's Chesed Gvura, but no end to how far it extends. Which this is also said about the Kalim, not just about the Eir. The ime yes kol echad b'bchinas hagbola, even though each Sefirah on its own is hagbola. Remember we were talking before, that's maybe the nichve. Everyone has their own minyan. There's a clear number. There's chachma bina. Here, hagbola b'chinas chachma v'chesed chulu. Nevertheless, the chesed flows and extends bli gvul. Because since it's still the gvul of Ein Sof, even though it's gvul in its parameter, but it has the Ein Sof in its extension. And this is what the gvul that the kelim from their root and source they have, which is the keich hagul, they have Ein Sof mamish, exactly the keich habli gvul. It's not true. Look at our world. Is this not a gvul? No, where'd you get this? No. This is what you just said is not a conclusion from Ayin Beis. It's your own conclusion. He doesn't say it's an illusion. It's absolute number. But he's still with. And a tzaddik, when he eats matzah, he has to eat with the shear. He can't just deny the structure. You see, what you have to realize is there's a paradox. And paradox is not a contradiction by God. Gvul and bligvul are not a contradiction. By you and me, there's a contradiction. Not a contradiction above. Anyway, halavai we should hold by bligvul. Meanwhile, we've got plenty of gvul to contend with. Tell me if you can go 1 night without sleep, 2 nights without sleep, then you'll tell me you're reaching bligvul. Huh? So we are trapped in a world of gvul, but let's put it this way, it's not airtight. What he's saying here is that even from the kelim, the beautiful thing he's adding here is that even kelim have bli mispur. This was not said before. Till now, bli mispur was only in Eris, which then makes me wonder, then when exactly is Eris? This is kelim. Okay, we'll get there. The suspense is building. We don't have to guess. He's going to say, the Rebbe Rashab, thank God, continued writing. So kelim and not Eris. Look. I know it's easy. I know we all like the shortcut to say Altein Madrege, but that learn the all the details. Well, right now, listen. Let's not dance. Right now, he's explaining. Let's go step by step. There's plenty. It's dakazdik. The kelim have in them, because the kelim are also revealing the keich Ein Sof and keich hagvul, but the structure part. The way I would explain it, the way I've explained it till now, is that kelim reveal God's desire for the structure. Eris reveal the focus is on the desire part, the more the godly element in it, and the kelim is more the structure element. But it's still structure. It's still a divine structure. Remember we spoke about the Mishkan. Moshe will tell you, if you read the Mishkan 3 times, the Torah says it. In Truma, and then in Pekudei they build it. I would say Truma is like Eretz HaGvulim, and in Pekudei it's Kelim. Because B'Pel you need a Keli. It's not enough to talk about the Keli. But talking about the Keli, talking about the structure, is the Eretz talks. Eretz ideas. Eretz energy. Keli is structure. Which one does God want? Does He want the idea behind the Aron, or He wants actual Aron? The answer, He wants both. But so they're both necessary. Remember, we said it's like words and ideas. Atzilus kelim are aligned to the ideas, to the energy, but they're still kelim. That's the point here. That's the zulas here. Eir is reflecting simply the instructions. So like we say, Torah Eir. Torah is a blueprint. Torah will tell you, here's how you build a mishkan. And when you learn Torah, you'll be mekayim a mitzvah when you're learning it. Like that's why kol ha'esek b'Torah se'ela, or kol ha'esek b'Torah Beis Hamikdash, is like you're building it. But manda avad le'aminina. A structure is a structure. You want an actual Beis Hamikdash. That would be how I would explain Eir and Keli. But the Beis Hamikdash is also, we're not talking about Kelim of Elam Hazeh, you're talking about a Keli that's aligned with exactly what God wants. That Keli is Keich HaGvul of the Rishima, not Keich Eir HaGvul. Keich HaGvul, and therefore, because it's Keich HaGvul, has an element of Bligvul, because it's coming from the same source, Keich Ein Sof. Now, in Tzvah Shemayim, that's only imposed upon them. There, the Keli is the Ikir. Elam Hazeh is an Ikir. So you count them. He's probably going to lead to this. Do you count the Tzvah Shemayim? But you're counting them. That count is far more Elam Hazeh. It's a Chumnizdik count. Elamai, God imposed a Keach Ein Sof. In Neshamas, when you count them, the Neshama itself is the Kalim of the Neshama itself is Ein Sof. That's what he's leading to. It's actually beautiful. I mean, it's complicated, but it's a structure here. And remember, why do you need Svar Shamayim? Because you want to have something in Elam Hazad that's very Elam Hazadik. And even there you should see Ein Sof. Neshamas don't have that Chiddush, because Neshama is not that Elam Hazadik. Neshama is a Chatchila Teherihi. But still, it's again a Mamutza, because it's Kelim, Primisa Kelim, but it's divine, it's Kiyum Atzmi. Let's see, anyway, this is all one first explanation in this whole Inyan. So he goes on. Okay, so it's Ein Sof. Let's read this again. The Liyash Shagvul, Shubchinis Agvul Shebe Ein Sof, being that the Kelim Agvul of the Ein Sof, Yesh B'Keich Ein Sof, it has the infinite power. V'hu Mash Yesh B'Kelim, Mishash B'Chem B'chinis Keich Agvul Shebe Ein Sof, Shu Ein Sof Mamish K'mei Keich Ablikvul. V'zeyin HaMisper De Elam Haba. And this is the number of Elam Haba. Shu Bli Misper, that's really without a number. Shizel Mitzad Keich HaMesaper Sheba HaMisper. Yeah, here it's clear. Keich HaMesaper Ba HaMisper. Because here you can't say Keich HaMisper Sheba HaMesaper. Oh, 1 second, maybe you could. Keich HaMisper Sheba HaMesaper? No, Keich HaMesaper Sheba HaMisper. The truth is, in Havonas HaInyanim, there are both levels. There's the Keich HaMesaper and the Keich HaGvigul. And there's the Misper, the Keich HaMesaper. Okay, but that's... Ayin Beis, okay, that's explanation 1 in explaining... This is the Kelim. It's interesting. So it's not even Elam Hazard. This is talk Elam Haba. Kelim is Elam Haba. Fine. And the second explanation is that the Kelim Misper of Elam Haba is at the level of the Eris, not the level. The Misper Eris Bli Misper. It's a completely different explanation. It's similar. Remember, he explained the Sham is also, but the Sham is rooted in Kelim or is rooted in Eris. So it stems with these two. I find it. So the second Eifin is exactly this. Misper Elam Haba is B'chinas Eris, because like we said earlier, Eris are Bli Misper, especially Mitzadir Dveikus in their root and their source. They're in the form of Bli Gvul. And that's why the number is beyond number. And when Eisen is saying Shalmakim, you're mamshich this Bli Misper, I guess according to both Efanim, Eris or Kelim. Like we learned in the previous end of Yom Shmini Atzeres, that this is done through Teira and through Tshuva. That's Eisen is saying Shalmakim. And then the number in Elam Haza becomes like the no number, like beyond number or beyond counting of Elam Haba. But listen, it's not over. Look at the next chapter. Starts Omnam Lahava Mashakos Shaloh. We still got plenty to go here. Well, it's actually one more chapter. Okay. Wow. Interessant. He's going to say one more chapter we have to learn for that part. Let's do the kitzur. He's in the middle. Listen, what we got here was basically what we got here was a whole discussion of Elam Haza. When you say that Ein Bracha Mitzri Ela B'Davar Samim Min Ha'ayin, you don't find a bracha when you count. You're talking about pure the Chumnizdik count in Elam Haza. Yeah, no, it's not a bracha to count things. However, if you're focusing on the quality of the thing, in other words, on the Eichus or the Ruchnis, the Elam Haba, there, like Asius Alef Atov, S Shadar Limnos, then there's a Maila. That's Asius Sheina Shalmokim. So then when you're focusing on the Sheina Shalmokim, so then the number is really beyond number. In other words, right. So if you're counting just to count, then you're bound by Elam Haza. If you're counting to know what the Keich HaGvul of Ein Sof is, then you're all right. So next time you count, keep that in mind. Next time you count, your next million. Kitzur. V'hiksha Shaloh, the Shaloh asked the question, Alay brochi b'davra somim min ha'ayin. Interesting. There he just brought in a brocha mitzvah b'davra modern and said the Maimer Azal. Here he actually says that a brocha is only found in a thing that's covered hidden from the eye, like fish. This boyer, and he explains the misped elam hazbehu leitev. A number in Elam Haza is not good. Misper Elam Haza, who inyan Eshe Darke Limnes. I'm sorry, Misper Elam Haba, and the number in Elam Haba, that's in Eshe Darke Limnes, Esis HaTeira, S. Who Misper Shaloh Yisafir. That's the number that is not countable. Kein HaMisper L'Hasogas Gam Achshav. Even today, there's no number to the comprehensions. But today it's Keitzer HaMasig and Emek HaMusig. In the future it will be in a form of Bli Gvul, without end. Like to his understanding, there's no number. And it's also Hasogas Mischolokis. That means that comprehensions that are divided one another. That's like the Chupose Shel Chavei thing. Now he explains now the two ways. What's the inyan? The primary numbers in Kelim. The Kelim that's still saying bli mispur mitzad keich hamisaper shebehem. Clearly keich hamisaper. Yes, for sure. So that still is bli mispur mitzad the keich, the power of the counter within them, which is the power of Ein Sof. Gam yesh leimed, the second interpretation. It's the energies that are without a number. Eishon Tzena Shamakim sounds both ways. Where do you get this? It's a different. No. No, where? No, that's not. It's two second interpretation. It has nothing to do with one another. They both are coming from the divine. So what do we have here? So we need to really understand what's the difference between these two ways in real Havana and Aveda. According to the second way, then it's not the Kalim that have no number. The Kalim have a number. According to the first way, even the Kalim have no number. So in other words, it comes down to what we spoke like in Halacha, how much negay the Shiyurim and Agbolas of Elam Hazeh, how connected are they to the Bli Gvul of Elikus, or is only mitzad the Kavanah? Okay, we got to discuss this more to understand the Havana of it, but that's really the two. Because it's not just technical, there is a nafkamina, by Benai. Okay, let us stop here. We did chapter 89, 171, 172.